Hi, everyone. I'm David Aragona with the March 13th edition of Horses to Watch. On the show this week, I'm going to take a look at three replays from the past weekend, one from Saturday and two from Sunday. And all of these replays are focusing on first-time starters, horses that were making their career debuts, and they all finished off the board. None of them achieved particularly notable results, but I think they all ran subtly better than it might seem, and they will do better in the future with this experience under their belts. We're going to start out at Gulfstream Park on Saturday by looking at the 11th race. It's a maiden race going 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds, and I want to focus on the number 5 horse, Unveiling, who's a well-bred horse making his first start for Shug McGahey and the Fifth Stable. He's by Arch, out of a 4-time winner, Streaker, who was a homebred for these connections. She is a half to Pine Island and Point of Entry, classy runners. Actually, Pine Island was also by Arch, so this horse, Unveiling, is very closely related to that champion filly. And we'll take a look at this race right from the start, and you'll see the number 5, Unveiling, is going to break fairly well for a first-time starter. He actually breaks towards the front of the pack, but you'll see right away he just doesn't really have the speed to go with the horses around him. Paco Lopez, who's on him this day, is hustling him a little bit, and he's just kind of getting outrun by the other sprinters in this field. And he's going to drop all the way back to around 7th or 8th in this field in the early going. Now, this is a race that did feature a relatively fast pace. Even though it's one on the front end, the number 3 horse is going to be your eventual winner. That was a well-met first-time starter for Todd Pledger, who went off at even money. So it's no surprise that he won the race towards the front end. You will see some horses closing from the back of the pack in this race. It's not a race that was really hindering horses with a closing running style, but you'll see right here that horses start moving up outside of the number 5, Unveiling, and he's going to get himself in a difficult position because he's going to try to follow the number 9 who's moving outside of him, and he's just going to kind of get ridden into the back of some tiring horses right here, and Paco Lopez has to stop on the brakes. He's going to lose about 2 to 3 lengths of momentum. He's got to angle outside of these horses and recommence his rally. It's just not something you want to see happen to a first-time starter in a race where he's having to rally from towards the back of the pack. Coming into the stretch, he's just going to display a little bit of greediness. He's not so willing to angle outside of these horses, a little bit reluctant to get into the clear. He's not changing leads until well into the stretch. And once he gets out into the clear and switches over to his correct lead, he's going to make a decent late run. He almost gets up for 3rd in this race, passing a tired runner late. This race did not receive the fastest speed figure. I think it's a little faster on the Timeform US numbers, but I just thought this was a really useful debut for a horse that is unquestionably bred to stretch out in distance in the future. Both Pine Island and Point of Entry, who are in his family, wanted to run all day. This horse is by Arch, so he's going to appreciate 2 turns. He might even like turf in the future. I just think this is a horse who ran deceptively well in his debut and will do much better next time out. We'll stick at Gulfstream Park for now, move on to Sunday by taking a look at the 9th race. This was a maiden race going 1 mile on the turf, also for 3-year-olds. And I want to take a look at the number 11 horse, Militia Man, who was debuting for Chad Brown. This one actually took some money, bet down to 7-2 under Rod Ortiz, and we'll look right from the gate. This horse actually breaks fine. He breaks with the field, and due to the fact that he was drawn in an outside post position, Rod Ortiz makes the understandable decision to just take him to the back of the pack and try to save as much ground as possible. Kind of like in the first race we took a look at, this race was also won by a Todd Pletcher first-time starter. This one actually went off at a bit of a price. The number 1 is going to eventually win this race, Largent. He went off at 8-1, and he'll be very impressive winning this race. Largent is a horse to pay attention to moving forward. You'll see in the stretch he really draws off from this field impressively. But I want to focus mostly on Militia Man. This is a horse that I think was working pretty well coming into this race. He's got pedigree to go this distance for sure. He's by Broken Vow. His dam is a half to Handsome, or he himself is a half to Handsome Mike, who won the Grade 2 Pennsylvania Derby, as well as Union Strike, who was a Grade 1 winner as a 2-year-old. The pace starts to slow down in the backstretch as Largent sort of allows the field to bunch up behind him, and Militia Man, for whatever reason, just doesn't really have any speed. He's dropped all the way to the back of the pack. You see the chiclets towards the bottom of the screen. He's the number 11 horse, and he's trailing the field at this point. As they round the far turn, Rod Ortiz is going to start to get into this horse, and given that the pace has slowed down a little bit, there's a bunch of traffic ahead of him, and he's going to make the decision to angle to the far outside and try to just slingshot around the field. And you see him coming into the picture right here, and he's going to go extremely wide coming off the far turn and into the stretch. And once they get into the stretch, despite the fact that he's under a left-hand whip, he starts to lug in under a rad. And right here you see he's angling his head to the right. He doesn't really want to run straight. He's trying to angle in behind horses. And it just seems like Rod Ortiz has a really difficult time time riding this horse out to the wire. He almost seems like he just gives up here and realizes that this race was a learning experience and he's not going to get a result that he probably could have obtained with a cleaner trip. So I just think Militiaman is a horse that did not get an opportunity to put forth his best effort first time out, and he's one of these Chad Brown horses that will run much better next time. I also think this is just a live race. The winner was impressive and obviously is a horse with some ability, so he's going to, if he meets a field of similar quality next time, I think Militiaman can do a lot better. We're going to move into Aqueduct, another race on Sunday. This was the 6th race, and we took a lot of rain on Sunday at Aqueduct. The track came up sloppy. We're going to take a look at another Chad Brown horse, the number 6 horse, Hizam. And Chad Brown actually had 2 runners in this race, and Hizam was the higher priced of the 2. The other horse was the number 3, Litany, who was $1 million son of Curlin, also making his debut. He didn't do much running despite taking more money. Hizam is the one that I want to focus on. He's a 4-year-old, whereas Litany was a 3-year-old, and I think that's one of the reasons that the betting public ignored this horse a little bit. But I liked the way that Hizam was working ahead of his debut, and we'll take a look at him coming out of the start, and you'll just see things go wrong right from the beginning because he breaks slowly. You see in the blue silks and the white striped cap, he's just behind the field right from the start. He wasn't prepared. And you see as they move onto the backstretch, given the sloppy track and that he's getting all of this mud kicked back in his face, he starts to climb under Manny Franco. He's just having a tough time settling. You see his legs going in all directions. He's just not handling the surface, not handling the kickback. And it's worth noting as they move down the backstretch that this is a race that was completely dominated by horses that were up towards the front. Number 4, Ehrlich, he's going to win the race, and the number 7, Orb, is going to finish second. Horses just didn't really change position throughout this race, so right from the get-go, Hizam is up against it. And for a first-time starter, this is just not the kind of trip you want to see, especially over a track that's taken so much rain, because it's hard to close, and they're getting discouraged, getting all that mud kicked in their face. But Hizam is a horse that I do think has some ability, because looking at his workouts coming into this race, he had actually worked right alongside Chad Brown's once Derby prospect, Network Effect, who was second in the Remsen last year, and he really held his own against that rival. Network Effect is a horse that was taken off the Derby trail in mid-February, so perhaps he wasn't training quite as well as Chad Brown would have liked, but I like the way that Hizam worked in company with that horse, as well as another recent maiden winner for the Chad Brown barn. And you see coming to the top of the stretch here, Hizam is just kind of in behind his stablemate Litany, not really in the clear. He's going to be running on decently at the end of this race. He's going to be passing a few tired runners in a race where just nobody was really passing anybody. To me, this is a race you just want to draw a line through. He's going to run much better in his future starts because this horse does have real pedigree. He's by Bernardini, and the dam is a half to the champion filly Untappable, as well as Patio Prado. So this is a horse that does indeed want to run all day. Maybe Turf is going to be in his future. I don't know. The Bernardini influence doesn't really say that, but the Patio Prado and the second dam was more of a turf horse. So perhaps he'll like Turf, but I think this is a horse that deserves another chance on the dirt. And despite starting his career as a 4-year-old, I think this horse has a lot more ability than he showed in this unveiling. So I think all of these horses, despite finishing off the board, are interesting in their upcoming starts, and hopefully they do better and we can make scores with them. Thanks for listening this week, and I'll see you at 3 more replays next week.